Okay, quiet. There's a lot of talking going on. So, I'm going to lecture on the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and at the end of the lecture, all of you can ask questions. And I may also ask some of you some questions. So you should be very attentive and no talking. So in the 12th chapter of the Gita, we find some very practical instructions. The 12th chapter once again begins with Arjuna presenting his doubts to Krishna. This morning, when we were discussing the Ishopanishad, we explained how, by understanding the Ishopanishad, we will get a better understanding of God. So, the 12th chapter begins with Arjuna presenting his inquiries to Krishna. Arjuna wanted to know, what is better, worshipping you in your personal form or impersonal form? Krishna said, those who worship me in my personal form, that is superior to the impersonal worship. So Krishna is saying, worshipping me in my personal form is superior to thinking that there is God, but God has no form. Krishna explains that those who take to the impersonal process and at the same time control their senses, they understand God, but after many, many births and deaths. So the point is this, that understanding God as a person who can be approached with the process of devotional service is superior to understanding God as without a form. Krishna says that those who are attached to the impersonal aspect of God, for them spiritual advancement is very, very difficult. So this is difficult because if you don't have a form of the Lord in your heart, then how can you worship the Supreme God? So Krishna is saying that worship me in my personal form. This is very important. Krishna says, for those who worship me in my personal form, I deliver them from the cycle of birth and death. You may remember that in the whole Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is emphasizing that we should worship Him, give our mind to Him, and give our intelligence to Him. Because mind and intelligence, if they are properly used, then one can make spiritual advancement. And if the mind and intelligence are misused, then you cannot make spiritual advancement. The mind and the intelligence have to be made our friends. The materialists are also very intelligent, but unfortunately, their intelligence is being misplaced. Take, for example, the modern scientists. They are doing so many things which at one point looked impossible to us. They have a camera that can take pictures from a distance of 40, 50,000 feet. They have made these aeroplanes that more or less fly automatically. They have manufactured the computer, and just in the size of the nail that you cut and throw away, they can store thousands of items as memory. But unfortunately, this is all shrama hevahi kevalam. It is simply a waste of time. Because by misusing one's intelligence, one just thinks of sense enjoyment. So Krishna is saying, please use your intelligence to find out how can I realize the goal of life. Instead of utilizing our intelligence to find out how can I become a rich man or how can I get more sense enjoyment, we should use our intelligence to find out how can I achieve the goal of life. So by associating with spiritual personalities, by listening to the agents of the Lord, by studying the scriptures, this is what we learn. How can we establish our relationship with God? Now, after establishing the fact that worshipping the Lord in His personal form is superior to thinking that God has no form, Krishna begins to explain how we can do devotional service. He has given us different choices. He first says what is the best And then he tells us what is second best, third best, and so on. So Krishna says, if you cannot fix your mind and intelligence upon me, then please follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. For example, if we told you, okay, now to succeed on the spiritual path, all of you must only think of Krishna for 24 hours. You may say, Swamiji, that looks very difficult. If it is difficult, there must be some other way also. And Krishna says, follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. What is the meaning of Bhakti Yoga? This we must first understand. Bhakti means devotion. Yoga means the science of meditating on the Lord. So Bhakti Yoga is the science by which we give our devotion to God. We have to give our devotion to somebody or the other. If you don't give your devotion to God, you'll have to devote yourself to somebody else. Just like in the Western countries, you see, almost everybody has a dog or a cat at home. In Soviet Union, I don't see so many dogs and cats. But in America and Europe, in every house, they have one dog at least or one cat. So you don't want to give your love to God, so give your love to your dog and cat. So that is very unfortunate. The loving propensity is there in everyone. So just like in wood there is fire. When the child is growing up, the child, if he is trained, he will learn how to walk. So similarly, the propensity to love God is in everyone. But God is pure. He is not contaminated. So to understand that pure person, we also have to become pure. That is why Krishna says, follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. The regulative principle means follow the rules and regulations. Without rules and regulations, you cannot operate in any area. If you work for the government, you have rules and regulations to follow. If you go to school or college, you have rules and regulations to follow. So similarly, for loving God, you also have rules and regulations. So Krishna is saying, Arjuna, if you cannot think of me for 24 hours in a day, then please follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. So what are the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga? We follow the process of sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti means you take advantage of some rules and regulations. For example, we get up every morning and perform Mangalarti. It may not be practical for all of you to live in the temple, especially in this country. But these rules can be followed wherever you are. And by following these rules and regulations, abstaining from 4 types of sinful activities, the impurities in the heart will be removed. And when these impurities are removed, then you will be able to see the beauty of devotional service. I will give you a simple example to understand this point. You may have something very beautiful in front of you, but if the other person is blind, then can he see it? So as long as we have these material desires, we are blind. We cannot see the beauty of Krishna. But by following the rules and regulations, our blindness will be removed. And then one will be able to understand the beauty of the holy name and the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Krishna says that one should get information on the principles of Bhakti Yoga under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. Krishna says, okay, now some of you may say, we cannot think of Krishna 24 hours. Then Krishna says, okay, you cannot think of me 24 hours, then you chant and you follow the rules and regulations. But some of you may say, we cannot even follow the rules and regulations. Then what to do? Then Krishna says, come and work for me. Just like everybody has some skills. So Krishna says, use those skills for my pleasure. Some of you may be working as scientist, a professor, or whatever. But still, you can find some time to come and do some practical devotional service to Krishna. So the point is that we must understand that there is a God. He has a name. And this human life will be used to serve Him. For example, There may be somebody who says, I like what Krishna is saying, I like what you people are doing, but I'm a businessman or I do a job, so it does not matter. You can stay where you are, but still you can help the devotees in whatever manner that is practical to push on Krishna consciousness. And by doing that, you will make advancement. Everybody is attached to the fruits of his work. The materialist does not want to give up the fruits of his work. But Krishna says, if you cannot work for me, then renounce the fruits of your work. Because by giving up the fruits of your work to Krishna, you will free yourself from the reaction to sinful activities. Because every action has a reaction. And if we engage in some effort to earn money, then of course we become liable for the reaction. But if we are going to offer it to Krishna, then we can become free from the reaction. So Krishna is trying to encourage everyone to engage at least in some level of devotional service. Because human life is very, very rare. And if we don't take advantage of this human life to cultivate spiritual knowledge, then it is very, very tragic. So Krishna is giving us information on all these paths, or at least we use one of these. By renunciation of the fruits of the work, Krishna says you can have peace of mind. Why is it that Krishna is saying, if you renounce the fruits of your work, you can have peace of mind? Because when you renounce the fruits of your work, you at least acknowledge that there is a God in control. You at least acknowledge that God should be the real enjoyer. And if you understand that God should be the real enjoyer of everything, then naturally everything has to be used in His service. So Krishna is saying the different phases or the different paths by which you can come to me, even if you take the lowest step, still by taking to that step, slowly you'll make advancement. Just like in a Krishna conscious movement we have seen that sometimes people will come on Sunday, they will just buy one book, slowly they will take association of devotees, and slowly they will increase their service. Krishna then describes how one becomes dear to him. How does one become dear to Krishna? So that information is also there in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says one who is not envious. And in the material world, everybody is envious of each other. A is envious of B, B is envious of C. Because everybody wants to be ahead of the next door person. So Krishna says the devotee of the Lord must be friend of everyone. He does not think that he is the proprietor of anything. He is free from false ego. Who knows the meaning of false ego? What is false ego?
Identifying with one own's material body.
Aham brahmasmi. I am this body. They are identifying with this body. Aham brahmasmi, I am pure spirit soul. They are identifying with this body. That is false ego. And real ego is aham brahmasmi, understanding I'm pure spirit soul. So through the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, false ego becomes replaced with real ego. Just like you can see that we are using an amplifier in this lecture today. Now when this amplifier was made by the manufacturers, they obviously made it with the purpose of using it for some mundane reason. But we are using it in service to the Lord. I saw this flat before any devotee had moved in. Some material people, some karmis were living here. But now you all have converted it to such a nice temple. So the point is, just like we have converted this flat into service to the Lord, your false ego can be converted to real ego. False ego means I am this body. Real ego means I am servant of God. Very simple. As I was explaining this morning, in the material world, you will never have a situation where you're always happy or you're always sad. One day you may be happy, the next day you'll be sad. But a devotee, he has to be equal in both. He should know if I'm honored today, tomorrow I can be dishonored also. So we have to become tolerant. In spiritual life, you will see that tolerance is very strongly emphasized, because Without tolerance, there cannot be spiritual advancement. How tolerant the tree is, whether it is hot or cold, the tree is there to help you. How tolerant the blade of grass is. Everybody is walking on the blade of grass, but still it is quiet. So Krishna says, become more tolerant than the blade of grass and the tree. A devotee is self-satisfied. His mind and intelligence is fixed on him. And he engages on the devotional path with determination. So determination is very important, because sometimes you may come to spiritual path, but then there will be some difficulty and then you will leave and go away. But if you are determined, then there is no question of leaving. So in the Vedic scriptures, determination is very highly recommended. In the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada gives a very nice example to show how we should be determined. Once there was a bird that had her egg stolen by the ocean. The mother bird went to the ocean and said, "Please give back my children." The ocean said, "No, I'm not going to give you your children back." So then the mother said, "Okay, I will dry you up with my small mouth." So the ocean started laughing. The ocean said, "How can you dry me up? You have such a small mouth." But Garuda is the bird carrier of Lord Vishnu. So Garuda heard that the ocean had stolen the children of his sister, because Garuda also belongs to the family of birds. So then Garuda came to the ocean and said, "Please return the eggs, otherwise I will dry you up." Then the ocean gave the eggs back. So you see, this is an example that shows that for the bird to dry up the ocean is an impossible activity. But because the bird was determined, the bird was successful. Similarly, if you're determined in spiritual life, then even if there is some difficulty, you will be victorious. Otherwise, if you're not determined, at the slightest agitation, you will give up devotional life. A devotee does not put anyone into difficulty. He is not disturbed by anyone, and he is fixed in happiness and distress. Such a person is very dear to the Lord. He has no anxiety. The materialist is full of anxiety, but the devotee is full of spiritual anxiety. The anxiety of the materialist is, how can I get more sense enjoyment? Therefore, he will do anything that he can to get some more sense enjoyment. But the anxiety of the devotee is, how can I give Krishna to others? And therefore the devotee engages in book distribution, and he engages in so many auspicious activities by which others can be inspired to come to Krishna. So one who has no material anxiety but is thinking how to realize the goal of life, he can make spiritual advancement. In the material world, we become happy when we get what we want, and we become sad when we don't get what we want, isn't it? So Krishna says, become equal in all situations. And we must cultivate the spiritual knowledge. Krishna says, give up non-devotee association. Non-devotee association means you don't associate with those who are engrossed in sense enjoyment any more than you have to associate with them. Obviously, when we go out on Harinam, when we go out on book distribution, we have to associate with non-devotees. But we associate with non-devotees only as much as it is necessary, not more than it. Therefore, by choosing our association, we can also make spiritual advancement. So Krishna is saying, if you follow my path, then you will definitely come to me. Making me the supreme goal. Making Krishna the supreme goal does not mean that you have to abandon your worldly duties. Making me the supreme goal means that whatever we do, it is just meant to help us in serving Krishna. Just like, for example, if somebody is married and he has few children, he naturally has to work because he has a family to maintain. But if he understands that the purpose of my existence and my family's existence is to please Krishna, then he will mold his life in such a way that Krishna can be served. So, if we take Krishna's instructions to heart, then we can make spiritual advancement. Religion means the words of God, dharmanti sakshat bhagavad panitam. And without following the words of God, we cannot make spiritual advancement. Just like there are so many so-called religious movements, but unless the religious movement is based on Shruti and Smriti, that means the scriptures and the pure representatives of God, it will simply create a disturbance in society. So Krishna is supreme. Krishna is not an imaginary God. And Krishna appears to establish the principles of religion. And these principles of religion can only be cultivated in the human form of life. So principles of religion means following the instructions of the Lord. And if we take the instructions without deviation, then they will have effect. Just like if you take the doctor's medicine. If you take the doctor's medicine without any adulteration, then the medicine will work. But if we take the medicine and by adding water, then it will lose its potency. So similarly, if we take to the process of devotional service, as explained by the spiritual master and the Supreme Lord, then the effect will be there and one will make rapid spiritual advancement. So this Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita is also called the Song of God, and it is a part of the Mahabharata. And in this Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is giving us instructions by which we can get out of the cycle of birth and death. Krishna says in the Gita, Dukhalayam ashashatam, the misery and everything is temporary. So, the solution from this miserable position is the process of devotional service. By spiritual association, the fire of devotional service gets higher and higher. In English, there's a saying, a man is known by the company he keeps. So, by chanting Hare Krishna in the association of devotees, the heart gets cleansed. We can see practically how, when you start chanting this Hare Krishna, how your life changes. In the morning I was explaining how, like in your country, the government wants people to drink less. How in America they want people to take less drugs. But they're not successful. Why? Because they're not giving people a positive alternative. So unless we can give people a positive alternative, they will not change their lives. And that positive alternative is this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita called the 12th chapter. In this chapter, Krishna has clearly told us how we can execute devotional service through some means or the other. So with this, we end our discussion of the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and now we will take on questions on this chapter. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. In the autumn of 1988, you told that we have special vision of Pribaltika and some other regions of USSR, special vision. And how can you describe the Vrindavan vision?
I said, what is the question? What is the meaning of Vrindavan?
Yes, of Vrindavan vision. Yes, what does it mean?
What's your name?
Maitreya.
So Maitreya Das, he wants to know what is the meaning of Vrindavan vision. Vrindavan vision means you see Krishna everywhere. Whatever you see, you think, how can I use it for Krishna? When you see these nice flowers, you say, oh, how can I use these flowers for Krishna? You see Krishna everywhere. You recognize that your body and senses should also be used only to serve Krishna. Just like today, it is a very nice day. So you say, oh, this is Krishna giving me this nice weather. Let me preach. And sometimes you may have a bad day. It may be minus 40. So then you can see, oh, this material world is nothing but full of misery. Doesn't matter where I go, there will be nothing but misery. So let me make plans how to get out of this material world. So Prabhupada said, a devotee must be like the bee and not like the fly. Because the flies, they will only sit on dirt. Just like if you have a cut in the skin and you are in a warm climate, the flies will come and sit on your skin. But the bee is always looking for nectar. So the devotee should be looking for good qualities of everyone. And if you're looking at everyone's good qualities, you will find somebody who has some good quality. If you want to look for bad qualities, then the bad qualities will be manifested. And if you want to look for good qualities, then the good qualities will be manifested. And if you have the Vrindavan vision, then every man you see on the street, every woman, you'll say, oh, here is a son of Krishna. Any man you see on the street, you'll say, oh, we are all from the same republic. You won't say, oh, this man's from Russian Republic, he's from Ukraine, this is from Lithuania. We are all from the same republic. And what is the republic? Krishna Republic.
Prabhupada once told that Krishna consciousness is science and it is not blind faith. Or what does he mean by the word that it should not be taken blindly?
Her question is, Prabhupada said, Krishna consciousness is a science and not blind faith. That means we should logically understand our position in relationship to Krishna. Not that one day you come, you like the Hare Krishna chanting, you take it up, and next day you have a fight with some devotee, you say, to hell with it, I'm going to give it up. But if you understand it scientifically, the whole philosophy, then you will never give it up. Who can defeat that there is God? Just like in your country, for such a long time, they had this propaganda that God is dead, but it was not successful. Who can replace God? And who can deny that we have a duty towards God? And the Vedic philosophy, it is not Hindu philosophy. The Vedic philosophy is for whole humanity. And the Vedic philosophy is, by chanting the names of God, you will become pure. You can see that yourself. Like I told you this morning, when I first came in 1976, there were hardly few people, 2 or 3 people chanting in this country. But today, thousands are chanting. Why? I'm sure all of you know that we are not giving you any pocket money, no rubles. But the reason you're chanting is because it is giving you happiness. If you work for some other political party, you get some material gain. But if you work for Krishna's party, you get no material benefit. But still you work for Krishna's party. Why? Because it gives you satisfaction. Okay? So you must understand it scientifically.
Well, she says the conditioned soul is aspiring liberation. Is it also a sort of material desire to get rid of material miseries?
No, this is not material desire. Just like when they put food in your stomach, it is natural, isn't it? It is your business to feed the stomach. Because if you don't feed your stomach, you will become weak and then you will die. So similarly, just like it is natural for you to feed your stomach, it is natural for us to serve God. And to serve God is not considered selfishness.
If compared to devotional service, what is the level of this liberation, spiritual liberation?
What is the
Yes,
real liberation is to become free from the cycle of birth and death.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.